Hey guys, Dr. J here. Today we'll start a new walkthrough series. This time we'll be aiming for the Platinum Trophy of Demon's Souls, the PS3 version, not the PS5 remake. As usual, I will be focusing heavily on the story and will share with you my thoughts and speculations about it, since the storytelling in the game is very vague. I will also explain how to unlock every trophy in the game and tell you what I consider to be the easiest ways to defeat every enemy. Okay, let's not waste any more time and start the game. We'll be playing offline. The official servers have long since closed down, but there are community servers that you can connect to if you want. But for simplicity's sake, I'll just do the entire walkthrough offline. Now we'll customize our character and choose its class. I'll play as the royalty, since he's basically a magician that also has the fragrant ring. I'll talk about the significance of this item a bit later. But suffice it to say, this is the easiest class to play if you've never played a Souls-like before. We finished our character creation, so let's watch the intro.
King Allant XII, by channeling the power of souls, brought unprecedented prosperity to his northern kingdom of Boletaria. That is, until the colorless deep fog swept across the land. Boletaria was cut off from the outside world, and those who dared penetrate the deep fog never returned. But Valorfax of the royal Twin Fangs broke free from the fog and told the world of Boletaria's plight. That the old King Allant had aroused the Old One, the great beast below the Nexus, from its eternal slumber, and that a colorless fog had swept in, unleashing terrible demons. The demons hunt down men and claim their souls. Those who lose their souls also lose their minds. The mad attack the sane, and chaos reigns. Valorfax spoke of the enticing power of the demon souls. Each time a demon claims a human soul, the demon's own soul is invigorated by the life force, and the power of a mature demon soul is beyond human imagination. The legend spread quickly. Mighty warriors were drawn to the accursed land, but none have returned. Bjor of the Twin Fangs, Yurt the Silent Chief, Sage Urbane, Skurver the Wanderer, the Sixth Saint Astraea and her knight Garl Vinland, and Sage Frake the Visionary. The colorless deep fog slowly creeps beyond Boletaria's borders. Humankind faces a slow and steady extinction. The deep fog will eventually swallow all lands near and far. But Boletaria has one final hope. A lone warrior who has braved the baneful fog. Has the land found its savior? Or have the demons found a new slave?
Okay, so we now have the choice of playing the tutorial, which is called Journey to the Nexus, or skipping it. I very much recommend playing the tutorial, even if you are familiar with the Soulsborne series, since we'll be able to obtain quite a lot of items here. Here's another short cinematic.
Brave soul who fears not death. I shall guide you. So that you may lull the Old One back to slumber.
So, from what I can gather, we are someone who has lived outside the kingdom of Boletaria and has entered the fog hoping he'll be able to gain the power of souls. Although as far as I know that's never explicitly stated, but I think that's a fair assumption. Before we continue, let's go over the basic controls. We use the left analog stick to move our character, the right to move the camera. The R1 button is for the standard attack with the right hand slot item, the L1 is the same for the left hand slot item. Nowadays, this control scheme is not particularly unusual, but back when the game was released, it was something quite new. This is the inventory menu, where we can see what items we are currently carrying. It's important to keep an eye on the item burden stat. This is the only Soulsborne game that has it. It is important because it limits the amount of items we can carry. The reason why we should be worried about it is because if we pick up an item that goes over our limit, we will immediately drop it back on the ground. And any dropped item will disappear if we go back to the Nexus. The world and character tendency is another feature specific to this game, but I'll talk more about it later. Let's go ahead and start playing, and I'll explain the rest of the features as we go. If we want to run, we can keep the circle button pressed while we're moving. It takes a second before we start running, and it consumes stamina, so we'll have to be mindful of that. The draglings are the first enemies we'll encounter. This one is very passive, but once we leave the tutorial, we should still be careful around them. Despite being the weakest enemies, they can still kill us if we don't take them seriously. The most important thing you need to learn about fighting in Demon's Souls is to know when to use the lock-on feature. If you press the R3 button, you lock on to the nearest enemy in front of you. The game baits you into thinking that you should always be using it, but that's actually the best way to get yourself killed. The move I just used to kill the dragling is called a backstab. As you've probably guessed by the name, we need to be behind him in order to perform it. Getting behind the enemy is almost impossible if you've locked onto him, mainly because you can't run sideways while you are, and also because the dodge in this game is only 4-directional. This means that the easiest way to do a backstab is to just run around an enemy and bait him into attacking you. Usually it's very easy to dodge an attack if you're already running and have enough space to fight. Of course, if there's more than one enemy, it's a bit more difficult. But that brings me to the other benefit of performing a backstab. Not only does it do an enormous amount of damage, but it also makes you invulnerable while you're performing it. Okay, so this time I wasn't quite able to dodge his attack, but that's fine. There are very few enemies in the game that can one-shot you. The Crescent Moon Grass we just picked up is a healing item. It restores 120 HP. They're very plentiful, so don't worry about conserving them. Those messages on the ground are just tutorial hints. If we were playing online, we could read the messages left by other players. When I dropped down from the bridge, I performed a dodge roll. You can do that by just tapping the circle button when moving. Like I said before, it's only 4-directional, so it's a bit difficult to use, but the main reason why you should learn how to use it is because of the iframes. Iframes is short for invincibility frames. It means that during a certain part of the dodge, you're invincible and can thus avoid getting hit by attacks. Okay, now let's enter that gazebo and touch the Arkstone. Usually, doing so will send us back to the Nexus, but in this case it will just teleport us to another part of the tutorial area. Speaking of, let's talk a bit about where we are. Although it's never explicitly stated, judging by the architecture and the fact that the protagonist was traveling to the kingdom of Boletaria, we might assume that we're somewhere inside the kingdom, maybe even on the outskirts of Boletaria Castle. This is further reinforced by this new enemy we are fighting. They are the Boletarian soldiers. They are much tougher than the draglings, but still relatively easy to deal with. One backstab is all we need to kill them. Here comes another one. Keep in mind that the further we progress in the game, the more difficult the enemies will become. But that's dependent on the specific world we're in. Thank God, there's no such thing as level scaling in this game. Anyway, this is the Blue-Eye Knight, one of the tougher enemies in Demon's Souls. They have nearly 50% more health than the Boletarian soldiers, which is just enough for us to not be able to kill them with a single backstab. I could just switch to the Catalyst and use a Soul Arrow, but let's just try to backstab him again. There we go, perfect. Something I should probably mention is that most enemies can have different weapons equipped. That usually doesn't matter too much, except for the Blue and Red Eye Knights. In the case of the Blue Eyes, they can either wield a sword and a shield or a claymore. As a mage, facing off against the claymore-wielding Blue-Eye Knights would obviously be much easier, of course. That's because enemies equipped with shields can block our magic attacks. They have to be actively blocking and will still take some damage, but it's still a hassle to deal with those. Unfortunately, he didn't drop any items. Okay, now let's go up these stairs, break these crates, and see what the item shining on the ground is. Nice, some more half-moon grass. That's also a restorative, and it heals us for 240 HP. Let's see what we'll find on this floor. Another item, and a crossbow-wielding Boletarian soldier. Usually, enemies with crossbows are easy to deal with, as long as there aren't any melee opponents nearby. The projectiles are slow and easy to dodge, but they do quite a bit of damage if they hit us. Now we need to cross this bridge and go up the stairs. There's another Boletarian soldier on top of them. Since there's not a lot of space on the stairs, we'll lure him to the landing. Okay, he attacked, so we can now go behind him. Whenever something like this happens, it can really put us in a precarious position. This time the enemy is very weak, so there's no way we'll die. But if it was against something like a Red-Eye Knight or a boss... Anyway, there's another Boletarian soldier, and this is the first time we'll encounter a fog gate. Their main purpose is to act as a signpost. Reaching one means we are heading in the right direction. Unless it's a boss fog gate, once we go through it, it will disappear forever. After going through a fog gate, we may experience ambushes like this, so we should always be careful. Let's see what's down these stairs. Another couple of half-moon grass, good. Now we can go back again and head to the other end of the corridor. Just checking if I have all of my restoratives equipped in the quick use slots. I guess now's a good time to talk about the quick use items. We can slot a total of 5 consumables that we can cycle through with the down button of the D-pad and use with the square button. But don't worry about that right now, since we finally reached the boss of the tutorial area. His main purpose is to make new players used to the idea of dying. It is nearly impossible for a new player to kill him, since most of his attacks will one-shot you. That doesn't mean he's invincible, on the contrary. If you know how to handle him, he's fairly easy to kill. All you have to do is what we've been doing with every single enemy we fought so far. We just bait his attack, go behind him and then attack him. Of course it's not possible to backstab him, so it will take quite a lot of hits, but his attack pattern is very simple and his attacks are heavily telegraphed. This tactic is not reserved solely for ranged classes. You can use a melee weapon just as easily. The only difference is attacking him from a distance will give us a bit more time to react. And that's basically it for this fight. As long as we are patient and don't get greedy, it's a very easy boss to kill. It's worth mentioning that you only have one chance to kill him during the tutorial. If we die here, we'll get sent to the Nexus. It doesn't affect the trophies and, like I said, you're supposed to die here. But if we do manage to kill him, we'll get some bonus souls and items we'd otherwise miss. He's got less than half of his health left already. Just a few more hits and he's dead. By the way, if you enter the boss fight with full MP, you should have more than enough to kill him. But if you don't, and you don't have the fragrant ring, don't panic and just switch to a melee weapon and finish him off. Just a few more hits. Oh yeah, it is possible to place him in a loop where he's constantly slamming his ass on the ground. But he'll eventually break off from it, and to be honest, it's not really worth the effort of setting it up. Okay, we just need one more soul arrow. Well, the fight went pretty well, I'm happy with it. Now we need to use the Art Stone to pick up the Vanguard Demon Soul and get a few hundred souls. Although they're both code souls, the item we get after defeating a boss is not the same as the currency we get from killing a normal enemy. The boss souls can be consumed to obtain normal souls, yes, but they also have other, much more important uses that I'll talk about later. Let's first see where we've been transported. I really don't like this growling. Sounds like we're inside the den of some enormous beast. Is that it that we saw in the distance? Hopefully we won't have to fight him. I'm not liking our chances. There is an item on the ground over here. A full moon grass, nice! It restores 600 HP, making it one of the best restoratives in the game. Unfortunately, that also means it's relatively rare. And yet we've already found another one. What else can we find here? These stairs lead back to where we were? Oh, there's quite a lot of items over here. Another cup of full moon grass we almost missed. Some shards of heartstone. This is an upgrade material. We'll need it during the end game, when we have to unlock the weapon upgrade trophies. These souls are items like the boss souls, but their only use is for us to consume and gain souls currency. The benefit is that we don't risk losing them if we die. And speaking of dying... yeah, unfortunately this death is unavoidable. But don't worry about it, we had to die here in order to get sent to the Nexus. And besides, we don't lose anything.
Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. Soul of the lost withdrawn from its vessel. Let strength be granted so the world might be mended. So the world might be mended.
This is the Nexus. It holds together the northern land of Boletaria. Thou canst not exit the Nexus, but each of the 5 archstones will connect them to one another.
As the Maiden in Black said, this is the Nexus, the main hub in the game, from where we can teleport to every other level. It's also where the majority of the vendors reside. We are currently in soul form, that halves our HP, but also makes it much more difficult for the enemies to notice us. There are a couple of ways to regain our physical form. One is to use a Stone of Ephemeral Eyes. It's a consumable, and we don't have any of it at the moment. And the other way is to kill a boss at the end of a level. There's not a lot of things we can do at the Nexus right now, so let's go ahead and talk with Stockpile Thomas. He's taking care of the warehouse where we can store our items.
I'm Stockpile Thomas. My wife and daughter fell victim to the demons. But I would be worthless in battle. At the very least, I hope to lend my assistance to you brave slayers of demons. I would be happy to lighten your load and look after any excess baggage.
We need to visit him every time we complete a level, so we can store the items we've collected. Right now, we only needed to transfer the upgrade materials we've collected in the Dragon God's lair. Stockpile Thomas also told us about his wife and daughter, which is actually a hint for a quest we need to complete. As with everything else in the game, there was no explicit mention that this is a quest. Now let's talk with the crestfallen warrior.
Well, you slipped through the fissure too, did you? You came for demon souls? Or to save this land and be remembered as a hero? Hunting for demons? Try one of the archstones. Now go. That is why you came, is it not? To this accursed Boletaria.
He wasn't much help, but at least he pointed us to where we need to go next. Well, this is the only level where we could teleport to anyway. A huge stone castle in the heart of the northern kingdom of Boletaria. Hungry soldiers whose souls have been stolen by the demons attacked trespassers, and terrible dragons nest there. Just as a reminder, it was Boletaria's king Allant who unleashed the Old One and caused this disaster. Well, obviously the description was correct, and there are dragons here. Though technically that was a drake and not a dragon. Anyway, I think this is a good place to end the episode. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider pressing the like button and subscribing to my channel. It will help me a lot and encourage me to bring more content for you guys. I'm releasing new videos daily, so hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow, when we'll continue our journey through the world of Demon Souls.